For years, I thought poor sleep was just a part of getting older. Tossing, turning, waking up at 3 a.m. and staring at the ceiling, it felt normal. But everything changed when I discovered a few simple sleep secrets that turned my restless nights into deep, peaceful sleep. If you're over 65 and tired of being tired, let me take you on a journey that transformed my nights, and might just transform yours too. I didn't realize my bedroom was working against me. For the longest time, I couldn't figure out why I was struggling to sleep. I was tired, really tired. Yet sleep just wouldn't come easily. I'd lie there for hours, my mind wandering, my body restless. Even when I managed to doze off, it wasn't long before I'd be awake again, staring into the darkness and wondering what I was doing wrong. At first, I blamed it on age. It's just how things go when you get older, I told myself. And maybe you've said the same thing too. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right, so I started paying closer attention. That's when I realized my bedroom was quietly sabotaging my sleep. Let me explain. The light that was stealing. My sleep one evening, I sat up in bed and looked around. That's when I noticed how much light was actually in the room, even at night. The street lamp outside poured through my curtains. The little green light on my TV, the glowing digital clock on my nightstand, even my phone screen lighting up with notifications. They were all tiny things I never paid attention to. But when I looked at it all together, it was like my room. Wasn't dark at all. So I made some changes. I bought some inexpensive blackout curtains online, nothing fancy, just enough to keep the streetlight out. I turned my digital clock away from the bed, and this one surprised me the most. I moved my phone out of the room altogether. I used to keep it by my pillow, thinking I needed it just in case. But in truth, I was scrolling late at night and checking the time every hour. That glow was messing with my brain's ability to shut down. Within a few nights of cutting down the light, I noticed something I hadn't felt in months. I was actually getting sleepy before bed. The temperature. Mistake. I didn't know I was making. Another thing I discovered was that my room was too warm. I've always liked being cozy. I think many of us do. I'd crank up the heat in winter or pile on the blankets until it felt like a sauna. But I came across something fascinating. As we get older, our body's ability to regulate temperature weakens slightly. That means if the room is too warm, it's actually harder for us to fall and stay asleep. So I tried something new. I turned the thermostat down to around 65 degrees Fahrenheit at night and traded in my heavy comforter for breathable cotton layers. I was skeptical at first. I thought I'd freeze, but that slight coolness actually made me feel more relaxed under the covers. My body naturally began to wind down, and I found myself sleeping deeper than before. Sometimes the best changes aren't the dramatic ones. They're the subtle shifts we never thought to try. The noise I'd grown used, too, but my brain hadn't. Then there was the noise. I live in a fairly quiet neighborhood, but that doesn't mean it's silent. There's the occasional barking dog, the early morning garbage truck, and let's not forget those random creaks and thumps every house seems to make at night. I used to think I was used to those sounds, that they didn't bother me, but then I learned something important. Even if we don't consciously wake up, our brain registers noise during sleep. Especially as we age, we become lighter sleepers. These little disturbances were keeping me from getting into that deep, restorative stage of sleep I needed, so I experimented. I bought a white noise machine, just one with a steady fan sound. Some people use apps or even old-fashioned box fans. The point is, it gave my ears something predictable to focus on and drowned out the little interruptions. It worked wonders. My sleep became less choppy, and I stopped waking up as often in the middle of the night. Turning the bedroom into a sanctuary once I started seeing results, I took it a step further. I wanted my bedroom to feel like a place of rest, not just another room in the house. So I made a few simple changes. I decluttered, removed things that didn't belong in a sleep space. That meant no piles of laundry, no bills on the dresser, no work folders on the nightstand. I added a soft lamp instead of the harsh ceiling light, and even brought in a small lavender sachet to place near my pillow. That smell alone helped create a calming atmosphere. The room started to feel like a retreat, not a storage closet with a bed. I also made one important rule. The bedroom was for two things: sleep and rest. No more watching TV in bed, no checking emails, no snacks. When I walked into that room, my body learned it was time to slow down. And let me tell you, it worked. Like clockwork, I'd start to get sleepy the moment I entered that peaceful space. The lesson that changed everything. What shocked me most through this journey wasn't how much my environment affected my sleep. It was how little I noticed it before. I thought poor sleep was something I just had to accept as part of getting older. But the truth is, my surroundings were telling my body to stay alert, even while I was begging it to rest. Once I aligned my space with my body's needs, sleep started to come naturally again. Not every night is perfect, nothing ever is. But now, more often than not, I wake up feeling like I actually rested, and that's a gift I didn't expect to get back. So if you're struggling with sleep and haven't looked around your bedroom, lately I invite you to try. A few small tweaks might just change your nights the way they change mine. The surprising way. My daytime habits were ruining my nights. I used to think that what happened during the day had nothing to do with how I slept at night. As long as I went to bed at a reasonable hour, I figured that was all that mattered. But after struggling for months, maybe even years, with broken sleep, I decided to pay closer attention. That's when I made a discovery that completely changed how I approached my days, and ultimately how I slept at night. Let me take you back a bit. Morning coffee, my friendly enemy. Every morning, like clockwork, I'd start my day with a hot cup of coffee, sometimes two. I loved the routine, grabbing my favorite mug, feeling the warmth in my hands and sipping while I read the news or looked out the window. It was comforting, familiar, and truth be told, I thought I needed it to wake up. But here's what I didn't know. As we age, our bodies process caffeine more slowly. What I used to be able to drink at noon with no problem in my 40s was now sticking around in my system much longer, sometimes up to 12 hours. That innocent second cup I'd have at 11 a.m., it was still affecting me when I climbed into bed at 10 p.m. I didn't believe it at first, but I decided to experiment. I kept my coffee, but I limited myself to just one cup, and only before 9 a.m. It was tough at first, but after about a week, I started falling asleep faster. I wasn't lying in bed wide-eyed and wired anymore. That little shift made a big difference. The power of moving. During the day, another surprise. I wasn't moving nearly as much as I thought. After retiring, my days got slower. I wasn't commuting, rushing around, or constantly on my feet like I once was. I thought I was staying active enough by doing chores or walking to the mailbox, but deep down I knew I wasn't challenging my body. I had more time, but I wasn't using it in a way that helped my health or my sleep. One day I decided to take a short walk around the neighborhood after lunch. Nothing strenuous, just 15 minutes to enjoy the fresh air. That walk quickly turned into one of my favorite parts of the day. I added a few light stretches in the morning and started doing gentle chair yoga a couple of times a week. What I noticed? By the time evening rolled around, my body wanted to rest. I wasn't just mentally tired. I was physically ready for sleep. It was a natural kind of tiredness, not the exhausted but restless feeling I had before. And believe it or not, I started sleeping deeper and waking up less throughout the night. Letting in the morning light. Now, here's something I never would have guessed in a million years. Light exposure in the morning can actually help you sleep better at night. One afternoon, While reading about sleep in older adults, I stumbled across something fascinating. It turns out our bodies have something called a circadian rhythm, a natural clock that tells us when to wake up and when to wind down. As we age, that internal clock gets a bit out of sync, but there's a simple way to reset it: light, specifically natural light, in the morning. So I made a new habit. First thing after waking up, I'd open the curtains and let in the sun. On nice days, I'd sit outside with my tea or take a short walk. Even just 10-15 minutes of morning light helped signal to my body, "It's daytime. Wake up." That clarity early in the day made it easier for my body to shift into night mode later on. It was like flipping a switch I didn't even know existed. And no, cloudy days don't ruin it. Your body still senses the daylight even if it's not sunny. Napping, friend or foe? This one was tricky. I'll admit it, I love a good nap. Sometimes after lunch, I'd sit in my recliner, close my eyes, just for a moment, and wake up an hour later. At first, it felt like a treat, but then I noticed something odd. On days I napped, I had a much harder time falling asleep at night. Or worse, I'd wake up at 2 a.m., feeling like I'd already had enough rest. I started to wonder if my naps were doing more harm than good, so I changed my approach. I didn't cut naps out completely, but I set some gentle rules. No naps longer than 20-30 minutes, and never after 3 p.m. That little window allowed me to refresh without slipping into deep sleep that would confuse my body later on. Sure enough, my nighttime sleep improved. I still had the energy I needed during the day, but I also looked forward to bedtime again, because I was truly ready to rest. The invisible stress of screens and news, one of the hardest habits to break, was my evening screen time. I used to watch the news before bed, thinking it was a good way to wind down, but in reality, the bad headlines, the flashing lights, the commercials, it was all stressing me out without me even realizing it. Then there was the tablet. I loved scrolling through social media or watching videos online in the evening, but I didn't know that the blue light from screens actually suppresses melatonin, the hormone that helps us sleep. It was like I was telling my brain, "Stay awake," when I was trying to sleep. So I made a commitment: screens off by 8:30 p.m. Instead, I turned to quiet activities, reading a paper book, listening to soft music, or just reflecting on the day. That simple change helped my mind slow down, and I could feel my body following suit. It felt like I was reclaiming peace in the evenings. Connecting the dots, when I look back, I realize I was unintentionally sabotaging my own sleep every day with habits I never questioned: too much caffeine, too little movement, too many screens, not enough daylight, naps that overstayed their welcome. None of these things felt big on their own, but together they created a cycle that kept me tired during the day and restless at night. Changing these habits didn't happen overnight. I took it step by step, listened to my body, and adjusted as needed. But the payoff? Worth every bit of effort. Now my nights feel calmer, my mornings feel brighter, and I move through my days with a new kind of energy. So if you've been struggling like I was, take a look at your daytime routine. You might be surprised how much it's affecting your sleep. I learned to listen to my body, not the clock. For most of my adult life, I lived by the clock. Wake up at 6:30 a.m., lunch at noon, dinner at 6, in bed by 10, lights out by 10:30. It was a schedule I'd followed for decades, and I thought it was the right way to live. So when I retired and that rigid structure loosened, I thought I was still doing everything right by sticking to my bedtime, even if I wasn't tired yet. But here's what I didn't realize. Over time, my body's internal rhythms had changed, and by forcing myself to sleep when I wasn't naturally ready, I was setting myself up for long nights of tossing and turning. Let me explain how I came to this realization and how it changed everything. The clock said, sleep, but my brain said no every night at 10 p.m., like I had done for years. I'd start my bedtime routine. I'd brush my teeth, climb into bed, and turn off the light. Then, nothing. I'd lie there wide awake, staring into the dark, trying to make myself sleep. I'd watch the clock tick from 10:30 to 11 to 11:30, and on bad nights, even past midnight. The more I stared at the time, the more anxious I became. I started dreading bedtime. Not because I was afraid of sleep, but because I was afraid it wouldn't come. That pressure to sleep on time was quietly stressing me out. And the worst part? I didn't even know I was doing it to myself. The day I put away the clock one night, something strange happened. I had stayed up a little later than usual watching an old movie. I wasn't in bed until close to midnight. I thought, great, tomorrow I'll be a zombie. But guess what? I fell asleep within minutes and slept straight through until morning. No waking up at 3 a.m. No tossing or turning, just good, uninterrupted sleep. That was the night I began to question everything. Maybe, just maybe, the problem wasn't when I was sleeping, but how I was listening to my body. So I tried something new. For a full week, I decided to stop watching the clock. I gave myself permission to go to bed only when I truly felt sleepy. Eyes droopy, body heavy, mind quiet. Some nights that happened at 10:15. Other nights it was closer to 11. But every time I followed that sleepy feeling instead of the numbers on a clock, I fell asleep faster and woke up feeling better. How I reconnected with my body's signals. You'd think that after decades of living in this body, I'd be good at reading its signs. But honestly, I wasn't. I had trained myself to ignore the signals in favor of routines and rules. So I had to relearn how to listen, really listen. Here's what helped. I stopped looking at the clock at night. No more checking the time when I woke up or when I couldn't sleep. I even turned the clock around on my nightstand. I didn't need the pressure of knowing it was 2:47 a.m. and wondering how many hours I had left. I tuned into natural drowsiness. That's the sweet spot. Not just being tired, but feeling a natural heaviness in the body. Not, I should go to bed, but I want to lay down. I stopped fighting for early bedtimes and waited until I was truly ready. I paid attention to what made me feel wired at night. Sometimes I'd sit in the living room watching action-packed shows or reading the news before bed. Then I'd try to sleep and feel restless. I learned to swap those activities for something gentler, like listening to soft music or doing a bit of journaling. I learned not to panic when sleep didn't come immediately. Instead of spiraling into worry, oh no, I'll be exhausted tomorrow, I gently reminded myself, it's okay. My body will sleep when it's ready. That kindness helped me relax. Ironically, it made sleep come quicker. The bedtime mindset shift that made all the difference. One of the most freeing realizations was this. I don't need to force sleep. I need to invite it. When I stopped treating bedtime like a deadline, and more like a gentle transition, everything got easier. I created a little pre-sleep ritual, not strict or complicated, just something calming. Here's what it looks like most nights. I dim the lights around 8:30 p.m. I turn off any noisy electronics, TV, tablet, phone. I sit with a warm, non-caffeinated drink, usually chamomile tea. I stretch a little or write a short journal entry, just 3 things I'm grateful for that day. And then, I wait for the yawn. When the yawn comes, I head to bed. No pressure. No clock checking. Just a quiet trust that my body knows what to do when I give it the right conditions. The questions I ask myself, instead of watching the clock, instead of saying, is it bedtime yet? I started asking, do I feel mentally ready to rest? Is my body feeling heavy or relaxed? Have I given myself enough quiet time to wind down? Am I trying to sleep because I think I should, or because I'm truly ready? These Questions helped me become more in tune with myself, and with that awareness came more peaceful nights. Letting go of old rules, it wasn't easy at first. Part of me still felt guilty if I wasn't in bed by a reasonable hour. But I had to remind myself, the goal isn't to meet a schedule, it's to rest. Just like our appetite changes over time, so does our sleep rhythm. And that's okay. In fact, I've spoken to several friends around my age who experience something similar. Some of them naturally feel sleepy at 9 p.m., while others don't wind down until midnight. There's no one-size-fits-all anymore. And trying to cram yourself into someone else's sleep box will only make things worse. What matters is consistency in listening, not obedience to a clock. The reward of trusting my body. Again. Now most nights I fall asleep within 15 to 20 minutes. I wake up fewer times in the middle of the night, and even when I do, I'm not as anxious. I don't check the time, I don't panic. I just roll over, take a deep breath, and let my body handle the rest. Some mornings I wake up at 6, others it's closer to 7:30, but I almost always feel rested. And that, to me, is a bigger victory than hitting any bedtime goal. It feels like I'm living in sync with myself again. Final thoughts. If you've been trying to stick to a schedule that just doesn't seem to work anymore, maybe it's time to let go of the clock. Try listening instead. Trust your body. Give it the quiet space it needs and wait for the natural rhythm to show itself. Because the truth is, your body still knows how to sleep. It just needs you to stop rushing it. The 3 foods I never eat after 7 p.m. anymore. I never thought of myself as someone who ate badly. I cooked at home, ate plenty of vegetables, and wasn't big on sugary snacks. So when I found myself staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., night after night, the last thing I suspected was my evening snack. Turns out, what you eat, and when you eat it, can have a major impact on how well you sleep. But I had to learn that the hard way. Let me tell you how I discovered the connection between food and sleep, and the 3 simple changes I made that gave me some of my best nights in years. My nightly treat that wasn't so sweet. I used to have a little ritual after dinner. Around 8 or 8:30 p.m., I'd make a cup of tea and grab a few squares of dark chocolate, just a little something sweet to wind down the day. It felt comforting, gentle, even kind of healthy. But what I didn't realize was that even dark chocolate has caffeine, enough to keep a sensitive system, like mine, humming long after bedtime. Plus, it contains theobromine, a compound that can stimulate the heart and increase alertness. I brushed it off at first. It's only a few pieces, I told myself. But once I stopped eating chocolate in the evening, even just a square or two, I noticed a big shift. I was falling asleep, faster. My mind felt calmer. That slight edge of restlessness I used to feel around bedtime, gone. So chocolate, even the fancy 70% kind, was the first food to go from my after-dinner lineup. The late-night snack that backfired. The second food I had to rethink was bread. No, not bread in general, but specifically the kind of quick, carb-heavy snacks I sometimes reach for late at night. A slice of toast with jam, half a bagel, a cracker with cheese. I told myself I was just taking the edge off hunger so I wouldn't wake up in the middle of the night. But what actually happened was the opposite. That late-night starch would cause a small blood sugar spike, which felt comforting at first. But when my body began processing it during sleep, it often led to a crash. And what happens during a blood sugar crash? You wake up. Sometimes it was around 1 or 2 a.m. My heart would beat just a little faster. My body felt unsettled, and my mind would start racing. I'd have no idea why, until I read about how late night Carbs can disturb your sleep cycles, especially in older adults. So I did another experiment. I stopped eating any bread, crackers, or sugary snacks after 7 p.m. If I truly felt hungry before bed, I switched to a small handful of almonds or a slice of turkey, protein-rich foods that don't spike blood sugar. The result? More stable sleep, fewer wake-ups, a feeling of calm that stretched across the whole night. My relaxing nightcap was a sleep thief in disguise. Here's the one that surprised me the most: wine. I always thought that a small glass of wine in the evening helped me unwind, and to be fair, it did help me feel relaxed in the short term. A glass of red during dinner or a little sip of something stronger while watching TV was part of my routine, but something strange kept happening. I'd feel sleepy after the drink, fall asleep quickly, and then wake up a few hours later, wide-eyed and restless, sometimes with a dry mouth, sometimes sweating, and almost always around 3 or 4 a.m. What I didn't know is that alcohol, while sedating at first, disrupts your sleep cycles. It suppresses REM sleep, the deeply restorative stage your brain and body need. And when it wears off, it rebounds. That rebound effect wakes your brain up just as it's supposed to be resting deepest. Once I cut out alcohol in the evenings, especially after 7 p.m., everything changed. I still enjoy a glass of wine now and then, but I make sure it's during dinner, not after, and only when I really want it. It wasn't easy to give up these comforting little routines. But once I saw the trade-off, 30 minutes of pleasure for a whole night of poor sleep, I knew what I had to do. What I eat instead that actually helps me sleep. Once I cleared out the sleep-sabotaging foods, I didn't just stop eating in the evenings. Instead, I started being intentional about what I ate and when I ate it. Here are a few of my favorite go-to options that help me sleep instead of hurting it. Banana with almond butter. Just half a banana with a small spoonful of almond butter provides potassium and magnesium, both known to support muscle relaxation and healthy sleep. Chamomile or passion flower tea. These aren't foods, but they've become part of my sleep-friendly snack routine. Warm, non-caffeinated herbal teas can soothe the nervous system and help signal to the body that it's time to wind down. A few walnuts or pistachios. These contain natural melatonin, the hormone that tells your body it's time to sleep. They're small, easy to digest, and give you that satisfying, I'm nourished feeling without the crash. Turkey slices or a boiled egg. Rich in tryptophan and protein, these options help support sleep without causing blood sugar fluctuations. The key was not just what I ate, but that I gave myself enough time to digest before bed. Eating too close to sleep, even healthy food, can force your body to work when it should be resting. So I started treating 7 p.m. as my gentle cutoff point. After that, if I was truly hungry, I chose calming, low-sugar, protein-rich snacks. How my nights and mornings changed. Once I made these food changes, here's what I noticed. I fell asleep faster, sometimes within 10 minutes of lying down. I stayed asleep longer, with fewer middle-of-the-night wake-ups. When I did wake up, I felt more at ease, less jittery, less anxious. I woke up in the morning feeling more rested and clear-headed. My digestion improved and my energy levels during the day were steadier. I used to think these tiny nighttime habits didn't matter, but now I realize they were shaping the entire rhythm of my sleep. Food isn't just fuel. It's a message we send to our body. And once I started sending the right message, everything changed. Final thoughts if you're struggling with sleep and can't figure out why. Take a look at what you're eating after dinner. I never imagined a square of chocolate, a slice of toast, or a glass of wine could have such an impact. But they did. And the best part? I didn't have to overhaul my whole diet. Just small, mindful changes made all the difference. Your sleep isn't broken. Your body isn't failing you. It might just be asking for something quieter, lighter, gentler. So, tonight before you reach for that evening snack, ask yourself, Is this helping me rest or stealing my sleep? The calm down ritual. That finally worked for me. For the longest time, my nights were a mess of overthinking. I'd lie in bed, physically tired but mentally racing, reliving the day's conversations, worrying about tomorrow's appointments, even replaying moments from years ago. I couldn't figure it out. I was doing all the right things, eating light, cutting caffeine, keeping a consistent bedtime, and yet my mind just wouldn't shut off. That's when I realized I didn't just need a bedtime. I needed a ritual, a gentle, reliable way to tell both my body and mind, it's time to let go now. This is the story of how I built a wind-down routine that finally worked, and how you can create your own. Why just going to bed? Wasn't enough. I used to treat bedtime like a switch. One moment I was finishing chores or watching TV, the chaos. Next, I was brushing my teeth and trying to sleep. But sleep doesn't work like a light switch. It's more like a dimmer, a gradual fading from wakefulness to rest. I learned that my nervous system needed transition time, a buffer zone between the busyness of the day and the stillness of the night. Without it, I was dragging the noise of the day into my sleep. That's when I decided to create a 30-minute calm-down ritual before bed. Not complicated, not strict. Just a consistent, soothing routine to ease me into rest. The 4-step routine that changed everything. Here's what my nightly ritual looks like now. It's simple, but powerful. Step 1. I dim the lights and my thoughts. Around 8:30 p.m., I start by lowering the lights in the house. I turn off the big overheads and switch to warm, soft lamps. This helps trigger the body's natural production of melatonin, the hormone that makes you feel sleepy. I also put my phone on silent and avoid screens from this point on. Blue light from phones and TVs can trick the brain into thinking it's still daytime. Instead, I create a little glow. Lamplight, candlelight, sometimes even a soft salt lamp. That amber light tells my brain, the day is over now. More than the lighting, though, this moment is symbolic. It's not just about dimming bulbs, it's about dimming my mind. Step 2. I make a worry list so I don't take it to bed. This part has become my favorite. Every night before I settle down, I write down anything that's bouncing around in my brain, not in a fancy journal, just a simple notebook by the bedside. I call it my worry pad. Here's how it works. I write down any thoughts that are nagging me, things I need to do tomorrow, decisions I haven't made, or conversations that didn't sit right. I don't try to solve anything. I just get it out of my head and onto the page. This process gives my brain permission to let go. It tells me, you've captured it. You don't have to keep spinning it around tonight. It's amazing how many times I've written something down and felt my shoulders drop with relief. Step 3. I do gentle breathing or stretching. Next, I do something physical to help my body unwind. Sometimes it's a few gentle stretches. Other times, I just sit quietly and focus on my breathing. Here's the simple breathing technique I use most nights. The 4-7-8 method. Inhale through the nose for 4 seconds. Hold the breath for 7 seconds. Exhale slowly through the mouth for 8 seconds. I repeat this 3 to 4 times, and it's like a magic reset button. My heart rate slows down, my muscles loosen, my mind softens. Other nights, I'll do some light stretching. Just a few minutes of reaching, rolling my shoulders, and relaxing my neck. It helps me release the tension I didn't even realize I was carrying. Step 4. I read something gentle instead. Of scrolling through my phone or watching TV, I pick up a physical book, something calm and uplifting. For me, it's usually a book of short poems, a comforting spiritual or philosophical read, or even a chapter from an old favorite novel. Avoid anything intense, no crime, no politics, no drama. I'm not trying to stimulate my brain. I'm trying to cradle it into stillness. Even just 10 or 15 minutes of gentle reading helps create that final layer of quiet between me and the world. Optional. A ritual object or sound. This may sound a bit unusual, but I've also found it helpful to have something symbolic that tells my brain, we're entering the sleep zone now. For me, it's a soft chime sound I play from a tiny Bluetooth speaker. Just once, ding. That chime has become an anchor. A gentle sound I've trained my brain to associate with letting go. For others, it might be a specific essential oil scent, like lavender or cedar wood, a cozy pair of socks you only wear at bedtime, a particular blanket or shawl that signals rest time. It doesn't have to be spiritual. It just has to be yours, something that turns the mundane into a little ritual of self-care. The results. What changed? Once I made this a habit at first, I wasn't sure if it would work. I thought, can a few little steps really fix my sleep? But within a week, I noticed, I was falling asleep faster. Sometimes within 10 minutes, I was waking up fewer times during the night. My mind felt less chaotic. I wasn't lying there rehashing the day. Even if I did wake up, I could fall back asleep more easily. I started looking forward to bedtime instead of dreading it. More than anything, it created a sense of peace, a way to honor the end of the day instead of crashing into it. This ritual became my little sanctuary, a way to care for myself, not just function. You can create. Your own Here's the good news. Your calm-down ritual doesn't have to look like mine. It doesn't need to be perfect or long, but it should be intentional. Here's how to start. Pick a wind-down time. Mine is 8:30 p.m. Choose 2-4 calming activities that work for you. Maybe a bath, soft music, a warm drink, a gratitude journal. Be consistent. Your brain learns through repetition. After a few nights, it will start to recognize the routine and respond with drowsiness. Keep it screen-free if possible. Even 20 minutes without a glowing screen can do wonders for sleep quality. Think of this as your personal sunset, a gentle, daily ritual to help your body return to stillness. Final words. A new way to end the day. Looking back, I realize I spent years trying to force sleep, when all I really needed was to invite it. Creating a bedtime ritual wasn't about being strict or perfect. It was about showing myself a little kindness at the end of the day, giving my mind and body the signal. You're safe now. You can. Rest, and night after night, that message has worked. So if your sleep feels broken or chaotic, maybe it's time to create a little sacred space before bed. Not a punishment, not a rule, just a soft place to land. You deserve that peace.